Defending the Earth, a dialogue between Murray Bookchin and Dave Foreman, published by South End Press, Boston, Massachusetts, 1991. Foreword, Turning Debate into Dialogue. By David Levine, founder and director, The Learning Alliance. This small but important book grows out of the great debate. That's what for months in advance many environmental activists around the country called the first public meeting between social ecology theorist Murray Bookchin and deep ecology activist Dave Foreman. Most expected political fireworks at the joint talk organized in November 1989 by the Learning Alliance, New York City's alternative education and action organization. Given the confrontational rhetoric and the all-too-frequent name-calling that has characterized the volatile political debate between various advocates of social ecology and deep ecology, the expectation of sparks flying was quite understandable. Over the last few years, the radical ecology movement has been torn by bitter ideological divisions. One of the most serious divisions, and certainly the one which has received the most play in the media, has been between deep and social ecology, between a biocentric philosophy which makes protecting the welfare of the wilderness the most essential human project and a left libertarian ecological humanist philosophy which sees radical social transformation as the main key to defending the Earth. In recognition of the seriousness of this ongoing and often heated debate, the Learning Alliance set up a face-to-face meeting between Bookchin, a founder of the Institute of Social Ecology and an influential philosopher within the international Green Movement, and Foreman, a founder of, and, at the time, an important spokesperson for Earth First. Both Bookchin and Foreman had been among the most vocal contenders in the debate between deep and social ecology philosophies over the last few years. The Learning Alliance, however, never intended this event to be a debate in any conventional sense. It was meant, instead, to be a constructive dialogue between two articulate spokespeople from different wings of the relatively small, but potentially powerful, radical ecology movement. We sought a dialogue that identified common ground and complementary differences, as well as one that carefully probed areas of serious disagreement. We were looking for a renewed sense of unity in diversity and a higher level of political discussion within the movement. At the Learning Alliance, we are convinced that the radical ecology movement cannot afford to expend its time and energy in unproductive and divisive infighting, particularly in light of the continuing harassment of the movement by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. While we agree that important differences in philosophy, analysis, vision, and strategy should be vigorously addressed, we feel this is best done in respectful and cooperative situations whenever and wherever possible. While a few of our differences may actually be contradictory, many others are complementary and can actually strengthen our movement if recognized and appreciated. Furthermore, at least some of our differences can be resolved rather than endlessly argued. Our goal for this event was to create a cooperative forum for just such groundbreaking discussions. Thanks to the generous spirit evidenced by both Bookchin and Foreman, the event was a success. Bookchin, who spoke first, set the tone of reconciliation and mutual respect by declaring that he stands shoulder to shoulder with everyone in Earth First who is trying to save the wilderness. Foreman replied by acknowledging that the greed of multinational corporations and the power of competitive nation-states threatens human dignity and social justice as well as the evolutionary integrity of the natural world. Echoing Bookchin, he asserted that our various movements, whatever their primary emphases, need to address, or at least respect, both the struggle for the well-being of humanity and the struggle for the survival and well-being of all other species. We face the same enemy no matter what we emphasize, argued Foreman. Indeed, both Bookchin and Foreman agreed that as long as hierarchical social relationships are the foundation for our societies, there is very little hope for creating an ecological society that will not seek to dominate or exploit the Earth. Similarly, both agreed that protecting wilderness areas and fostering a new ecological sensibility and a direct moral concern for other species was an urgent task that could no longer be ignored or postponed. This fragile but real unity between Bookchin and Foreman and their clearly stated respect for diversity within the movement represent an important achievement. Such principled unity is important because thousands of people are now becoming active in seeking a sustainable and ecologically sound future, whether by organizing against toxic wastes, setting up recycling centers, purchasing green products, participating in Earth Day events, contributing to environmental organizations, or protesting corporate environmental degradation. While these initial efforts often fall short of the level of understanding and activism that is necessary, they do represent an important step forward. They are a foundation upon which a broad-based, radical ecology movement can ultimately be built. To achieve this goal, however, today's radical ecologists need to focus their strongest criticisms not against each other, but against those institutional forces which are the source of so much of today's environmental degradation and which are now trying to co-opt and contain the growing grassroots reform movement that is emerging in this country and throughout the world. While there is certainly room for diverse philosophical and strategic approaches within an effective movement to defend the earth, there is certainly no room within our movement for major timber companies who claim that every day is Earth Day while they continue to clear-cut major sections of the Northwest. There is no room for chemical companies who are producing hazardous materials and, at the same time, claim that they are producing environmentally safe products now that they are repackaging them in a green bottle. There is no room for the many other corporate and political interests who claim their exploitative policies are healthy for either the earth or its people. The ecology movement needs to mean more than that. The negative effects of these corporate and government environmentalists are already being felt. A number of big environmental organizations have corporate and politically conservative voices among their executive staff, their boards, and their funders. The result, of course, is more and more compromised positions, more and more timid strategies, and, ultimately, a more and more ineffective ecology movement. The examples are, unfortunately, all too plentiful, from mainstream environmental organizations which allow destructive development projects to move forward at the request of business forces within their organization to groups which advocate responsible legislation to protect one or two endangered species while they allow the rainforests and lifeways of indigenous people to be economically plundered and drastically altered without protest. Fortunately, as the discussion between Murray Bookchin and Dave Foreman shows, a potential counterforce to this corporate environmentalism has been growing for some time. Indeed, there is a diverse proliferation of more radical ecological schools of thought and action, including deep ecologists, social ecologists, ecofeminists, bioregionalists, Native American traditionalists, eco-socialists, and Greens. These small groups have the potential to reach out to the general public and the growing grassroots environmental movement in educational and empowering ways that can transform today's reformist environmental movement into a broad-based movement seeking fundamental change. I believe that the future of the planet may well depend on how effectively today's radical ecologists can work together and build such a movement. It would be a crime, I think, if today's pioneering radical ecologists allowed principled political debate and dialogue among themselves to degenerate into sectarian squabbles and ego-bashing. Successful social movements are not built this way. If radical ecologists continue to approach their differences in such destructive, combative ways, they will likely only end up alienating rather than educating the expanding segment of the general public that is beginning to face up to the reality of the ecological crisis. Luckily, as the dialogue between Bookchin and Foreman recreated and expanded in this book so clearly attests, building a principled unity in diversity is possible. In Chapter 1, as in the original dialogue, Bookchin and Foreman begin to cooperatively explore their differing, but often overlapping, perspectives on a wide range of issues: nature philosophy, environmental ethics, social theory, and social change strategy. In Chapter 2, prompted by comments and questions from Paul McIsaac, a longtime activist and a reporter for National Public Radio, both Foreman and Bookchin discuss their views on what the radical left tradition offers or doesn't offer to the radical ecology movement. In Chapter 3, Linda Davidoff, executive director of New York City's Park Council, challenges both Bookchin and Foreman on their negative views of reformist social change strategies and sparks each of them to spell out how they each think their more radical visions and strategies can be realistic and effective in the less than perfect political world here and now. In Chapter 4, Jim Houghton, a leader of the black community group Harlem Fight Back, sparks an important discussion between Foreman and Bookchin by raising the particularly thorny issue of racism in the ecology movement and how this affects the future of the planet. The result of these discussions is a surprising amount of agreement, even though some important differences still exist, some of which are taken up in chapters 5 and 6 of this book, which were written especially for this book by Foreman and Bookchin a year after the original dialogue took place. These differences, along with several others, need to be explored even further and, if possible, resolved. To its credit, this book points the way forward. Besides being packed with provocative ideas and insights, this book is a model of how best to raise difficult political differences within a movement. If Bookchin and Foreman can do it, then so can the rest of us. This book proves that there are creative opportunities within the radical ecology movement for building alliances and connections across community issue, race, gender, class, and political lines. If nature itself shows the need for diverse species to coexist within any particular environment, then we humans should also understand the imperative of unity through diversity. The struggle across this country and the world for more meaningful communities, institutions, and ways of life is not an easy task. It will require the cooperation of those who choose to stop bulldozers in wilderness areas, who work to counter racism within the urban ecology of our cities, who develop alternative technologies, who directly challenge major environmental plunderers, who try to revive and strengthen the empowering institutions and processes of grassroots democracy, and who encourage a deeper spiritual understanding of the natural world and the human community. Not surprisingly, this book itself represents the cooperative work of several people. My thanks, of course, go out especially to Murray Bookchin and Dave Foreman. Thanks also go to Paul McIsaac, Linda Davidoff, and Jim Houghton, who added so much to the discussion, and to South End Press for making this important and historic dialogue available in book form. I particularly want to thank Greg Bates from South End, who came up with the original idea for publishing this dialogue as a book, and Steve Chase, the South End editor, who was able to translate and expand a taped conversation into an accessible, readable book, as well as write an insightful introduction to this dialogue. Several people read and commented on various parts of this manuscript. These people include Janet Beal, John Davis, Bill Lynn, Patrick McNamara, Roxanne Pacheco, Kirkpatrick Sale, and Bill Weinberg. The Learning Alliance is proud to have been a partner in this important project.